Hello, everybody, and welcome into the first live show of preseason NFL Week 1. I'm going to be your host today, Sean, PSU fans to Newsham. Joining me for what I believe is his first show with RotoGrinders, Micah Bedard goes by Darddog. You guys will probably notice him in the Discord. Micah, how's it going today?
Yeah, good. Welcome. Glad to make my official debut on the RotoGrinders. Happy to join the team and excited for a little extension of the college football side into the preseason NFL.
Yeah, glad to have you. So for those unfamiliar with Micah, Micah is going to be joining the team here for college football and college basketball season coming up. So he was a perfect person to hop in for this first live show with me today, since effectively preseason ends up being a bit of a continuation of the college football season. So we'll give you guys a quick rundown of what we're looking at here today. We got a 5-game slate on FanDuel and a 4-game slate on DraftKings. We're going to talk about the games on FanDuel first, the one game that stands out, and then we'll get moving to DraftKings. Quick notes before we get going here today. For those of you who are new to preseason, some strategies that we'll be looking for. We're always looking for sort of thin areas on depth charts, guys that are going to get a lot of work or have the possibility to get a lot of work. We saw it happen last night. If anyone followed along with the New England Patriots, their receiving core was incredibly shallow. There was about 5 guys, and they all played a significant amount, all 5 of which realistically produced, I think, except for one. Josh Hammond didn't really produce. That's one of the biggest things to look at in the preseason. So we'll be talking about that as we go. Mike, anything you want to add before we start looking through the games here?
Yeah, just the same thing. It's just in terms of volume. You want guys who are going to be out there longer, especially the edge in preseason DFS is guys who are going to go out there and play, Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers because they think, this is the Packers, so we got to play him. So tons of leverage spot to have. So excited to get into it.
For sure. All right. Just so you guys are aware, there is currently a sale going on for the NFL season. With NFL preseason kicking off this week, there's no better time to get yourself ready and get yourself a yearly RotoGrinders NFL premium subscription. If you go and get the prescription today, you will get a discount. You get access to NFL premium for the entire season for only $299.99. So you can go to the RotoGrinders homepage and you can find the discount link at the top. So it's a great time for you guys to go and get that picked up for the season coming up here. All right, first game tonight is only on FanDuel. So for those of you guys that are playing on FanDuel, this pertains to you. If you guys are just playing on DraftKings, just stay tuned. We'll be back in the next 5 minutes or so to get back onto the DraftKings. So we have Atlanta going in tonight. The Falcons are playing the Lions tonight. So we're going to look at the Falcons-Lions first. We're going to start with Atlanta. So quick look at Atlanta here. And if I look through all the depth chart, I don't really see tons that sticks out with the exception of one thing, Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder, we expect to get 2 to 3 quarters of action. Felipe Franks has been working at tight end. However, he's listed as quarterback on the slate, so he's not really a great play. If he was a tight end, we probably would have had him marked up there. So for me, Ridder is the one guy at quarterback on the slate overall that really stands out. 2 to 3 quarters of a mobile guy like that, when we don't really have any clear-cut guys that will be getting the full game, stands out a bit to me. The other person for me that stands out, tight end tonight, is really weak. There's very limited options tonight at tight end. So I'm not saying I love playing Kyle Pitts, and this is definitely someone I do not love to play in this type of game. But for me, he is a bit of an option here. What's your thoughts here looking at the Falcons, Micah?
Yeah, just like that. I mean, playing on FanDuel, I was kind of upset this wasn't on DraftKings, but a lot of people thought that Ridder was going to challenge Mariota for the starting job. It seems like Mariota's kind of taken that away. So you compare that in the debut for Ridder, a mobile guy, like you said, we saw him at Cincinnati last year, break some college football slates. This guy's going to probably get the most time at quarterback of anybody on the slate. So he really makes a lot of sense here. But yeah, like you talked about, is these depth charts, you got a bunch of guys, no really consolidated targets that you can really focus on, especially when you consider Ridder could run into touchdowns and wipe out some of these running backs. I guess Allgeier is a little bit of a guy at running back that might get some time too as a rookie, maybe some goal line work. But really, I'd say that Ridder is my only main option from this team.
Yeah, so for you guys wondering what we're sort of looking for thin depth charts, generally speaking, I'll sort of not consider tons of the starters. So if there's a couple starters that I think are established, maybe I won't look at them. But I'm generally looking for 2 to 3 running backs in a situation. Quarterbacks max 2. Maybe you get a guy like Ritter that you expect to play 2.5, 3/4 worth of action. And then receivers, you're looking for like 5, 6, 7 receivers tops. Those are where you really get thin. Similar to tight end, you're looking for maybe 2 or 3 tight ends that are playable. And the key with tight end, a bit more different than the other positions, you want the tight end to have a bit more of a receiving ability. What's your thoughts on Pitts in this game with the lack of receiving options that we have tonight at tight end?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there aren't that many options. And I mean, even if he's just going to play a half, I mean, he could pull in 2 touchdowns. So especially on FanDuel, where you're only going to be able to play him, like I don't mind playing Pitts at all. You mentioned you don't want to obviously play a bunch of starters, but he's a guy who is still young that they're gonna not worried about from it. Like guy's a freak athlete, so I definitely think that he's going to get enough time, and I mean he could definitely be in like an optimal lineup for sure.
For sure. Yeah, and with regard to Pitts, those of you that are going to be asking, yes, there's definitely some risk with him. He could totally be a guy that is expected to play and then doesn't play a snap. So take that into consideration when you're looking at Pitts. All right, moving over to the Detroit Lions. What's your first thoughts on the Detroit Lions here, Micah?
I mean, not much. I mean, like you said, a lot of guys. Interesting that they just signed Justin Jackson. So he's kind of, I think their running back committee might be a little bit from a standpoint of having a more consolidated guys, but signing him kind of throws a wrench into that. Like you said, Khalil Pimpleton's the only guy I think of maybe in GPPs, which we saw on the college level. But I mean, like you said, kind of like Atlanta, aren't really many consolidated targets you're going to find with this group. But Pimpleton, I think, is worth that. Quintez Cephas, who's also not going to play, which I might have liked there. But I think Pimpleton is just a GPP play that I might look at, but not a whole lot to like on my side.
Yeah, so if I'm looking through this, the quarterbacks aren't really of interest to me. You're going to be splitting it 3 ways, so there's not much there. Looking at the running backs, my favorite running back from a GPP perspective, I would say, is Jermar Jefferson. I think he has the most talent of the group of guys that are probably going to get utilized a little bit. However, we're looking at 5 to 6 running backs here, and the starters are expected to play a quarter. So you really are going to have a pretty deep situation there. For me, the receiving group is a little bit thin. If we think that St. Brown, Shark, and Josh Reynolds don't play tons past the first quarter, once you get past them, you have guys like Cephas, who's out. You have Trinity Benson, who's been not banged up. And then you have Josh Johnson, who they just signed, and Maurice Alexander. So it really leaves Pimpleton, Kennedy, and Khalif Raymond as guys that have been there that are possibly going to get used. So I think Khalif Raymond and Tom Kennedy, I like from a GPP perspective. They could get a decent amount of run here as well. Looking at the tight ends, as you see, the tight end position is very full for the Lions tonight. Not really a spot I'm looking at going into at all. And then the kickers, again, is not great. Looking at this game from a defensive perspective, the Detroit Lions quarterbacks are at least solid enough from a preseason standpoint that I don't really want to attack it. Similarly, the Falcons running out Ritter and Mariota isn't the best to attack. What's your thoughts on the defenses in this game?
Yeah, exactly. Especially in preseason, you're looking for guys who are going to, throw picks on the other side, and I don't think you have that big of there are definitely better spots to attack from a defensive perspective. So I mean, I don't think you can talk me out of playing really any defenses on the slate, but I think there are others that are in better spots for sure.
For sure. Yeah, and if you guys have any questions, make sure you pop them in either the Discord or the comments on YouTube, and we'll try to get to as many comments, questions, concerns as we get through the night. All right, next game we have the Browns at the Jaguars, so we're going to start with Cleveland here. So looking at the Browns, as of right now, we're expecting Deshaun Watson to play. It could be limited. Mike, I know you have a little bit different of a take here with the quarterbacks for Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, he's not getting talked up a lot, and I think there is some, I read earlier this week, Brissett and Watson. I think Watson is going to play a couple series. But overall, after him, Brissett might get a couple series. I think the second half could be Josh Dobbs the whole time. Josh Rosen hasn't even been getting very many reps, even in practice. So I think Dobbs is a great GPP option at quarterback. Not a lot of people are talking about him. I think you can get him in a little bit lower ownership, and he's also a dual threat guy. So I don't mind Dobbs as much in GPPs. I think he's a pretty good option. Same with Demetric Felton. We saw him at UCLA. Now that Jakeem Grant is hurt, he's going to be in on kickoffs, on special teams as well. I think he's going to get as much work as he can, and you can get him to line up anywhere. So I think Felton and Dobbs are definitely good plays. And then I'll let you kind of go on those wide receivers because I think you got a lot of targets there as well.
Yeah, so for those wondering, Felton is getting reps at receiver in the first team receiving department. So he's someone that I think there could be limited amount of snaps for Felton because of that, especially with Jakeem Grant going down. I think there's going to be a role for Felton on the team, and they maybe will not use him as much in this game as they do later. Looking at the rest of the receivers, I'm not expecting much, if anything, from Cooper or Peoples-Jones. Schwartz and David Bell have both been banged up as well. And then Jakeem Grant got carted off the other day with Michael Woods being out. So when you look at the receiving core, it's pretty thin. We have preseason hero and legend Javon Wims out here running right in the 6th wide receiving core, or 6th spot on the depth chart. Jamarcus Brown, Mike Harley, Travell Harris. I expect those guys to get a pretty significant amount of time. It's pretty clear to me, like Derek Dillon, Dalen Baldwin, those aren't typically when you see guys come in the preseason and they just signed, the team doesn't have much in terms of thoughts on them because the team is not looking to have them make the roster. Now, I'm not saying that Travell Harris is likely to make the roster either. However, Travell Harris has been there 4 months and has more of a potential to make sort of headway than those guys are. So for me, I like Bradley, Wims, Harley, Travell Harris a little bit from GPP, especially Wims and Bradley, who are getting some time with the ones. It's realistic. You could see a half plus from those guys in this game. Moving down to the tight end spot. Again, we're going to say this a lot tonight. Not much there. Tight ends, everyone's relatively healthy. None of the back end guys are really super receiving threats, I would say. So it's a situation where I'm not super excited from the tight ends here. Anyone else stand out for you for Cleveland?
No, just going back to the wide receivers as well, is that I was reading an article this week with Grant going down, who they thought was going to be their primarily return guy and have some plays in the receiving game. They did notice that, mention that Cleveland just might pull back a lot of their starters anyways. When you already lose guys in camp, you don't want to lose them in another preseason game. So I think Mike Harley's a guy as a rookie coming in that I definitely think is good. Same thing with Travell Harris. But yeah, the tight ends, I really think tonight all these guys are probably going to be pretty low owned. I don't think there's going to be one who's very popular. And you're really just crossing your fingers and maybe one of these guys catches a touchdown. I mean, you're in that dire of a situation at tight end tonight.
For sure. All right, next team we're going to look at is the Jaguars. So Jacksonville has a bit of a different situation here. They have already played a game. Looking into this game, we're expecting the starters to play 2 to 4 series. The more efficient they are, the less they will play, which unfortunately for us in the DFS industry is not really what you're looking for. So for me, Trevor Lawrence is maybe in play to some extent. If you get 4 series out of him, maybe he can produce. The issue is if he gets 4 series, that means he's probably somewhat inefficient in that. Looking at the running backs, if Etienne gets 2 to 4 series, and let's say he plays, let's say a third of the snaps or 25% of the snaps, with his big playability, at least, he gives some production to me. I'm not as interested in the back end guys. Unfortunately, Hall of Fame game legend from week 1 or week 0, Nathan Cottrell. I'm pretty sure. Did you watch that game, by the way?
I didn't. I caught bits of it, but I didn't watch the whole thing.
So I think Cottrell broke his wrist at the end of the first half when he was returning a kickoff, and I think he played with a broken wrist in the second half. Is my hunch. I haven't read up on it to note, but like the fact that they injury waived him makes me think that he played with like a broken wrist in that game. So, anyways. The nice thing with this is we do have snap counts for them. As you see, the running backs without Etienne even playing was incredibly spread out. When we add in Travis Etienne, that's going to spread it out even more. I don't expect to see Matt Colburn play very much. For those not familiar, he had a really productive USFL season. As Micah will probably tell you, he is not the most talented running back of all time. So I'm not loving that. What's your thoughts looking through the receiving core here, Micah?
Yeah, I think this is the one spot where you do have some numbers from the Hall of Fame game. It does throw a little bit of a wrench in it that some of the starters are going to play. I agree with you about Etienne having a big playability. I also wonder how popular he's going to be because people do love to play. I mean, people love to play him in college. He's a name recognition. He'll get some thoughts here. But you see, Kelvin Austin, 62% of snaps. Jeff Cotton, 48% of snaps. think those guys are going to continue to get those. Then Evan Ingram is a guy at tight end where, him being a starter, you could possibly play him if he gets, once again, they're all the same price, so it really doesn't matter. But Ingram's kind of in the conversation along with Garrett Prince. But once again, you can see kind of spread out. So Prince got 40% of the snaps, with Ingram really not, and the starter's not playing that much. So that goes down some. But once again, I mean, you're really just taking flyers at TE.
Yeah, definitely. Looking back at the receivers and sort of the snap count. So this is my thoughts. Let me know if you agree. So we do expect, as of now, Marvin Jones and Zay Jones to play a bit. I expect that to come at the expense of back-end guys like Willie Johnson and Ryan McDaniel. So despite maybe not getting, let's say, 48 and 62% of the snap that Cotton and Austin got, I still think that range, like the Cotton, Austin, Hall, Jones, they will probably still play a significant amount. Whereas like Willie Johnson and McDaniel will be the ones that take a hit on the snap count.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I don't think these guys, like Kelvin Austin, I don't think is going to go from 60 to 30% just because the starters are playing. I think they still want to get looks at those guys. And Tim Jones is the guy I like from a GPP standpoint there.
Yeah, looking at both defense in this game, again, like we said, we're looking at Watson as someone that probably is going to play tonight. If he doesn't play, I definitely like the Jags a bit more. But looking at the Jags, like if Lawrence is getting 2 to 3 series, CJ Beathard's going to play a bit, and then you have Luton, who's at least, I'm not going to say good or anything, but Luton's at least not the worst guy on the slate in terms of quarterback play. So like I'm not as interested in the Browns defense, but the Jags maybe interest me a little bit, especially if we got news that Deshaun Watson wasn't going to play.
Yeah, if Watson doesn't play, I think that bumps him up a little bit. But they weren't world beaters in the first week against Oakland, so I definitely don't think that same thing kind of as the last game. Like I'm not going to really talk you out of playing these, but I think in the later games they got some better options with some quarterbacks who are definitely going to throw. I'd love to take some over on the interception props there.
For sure. All right. Heading over to the New York Jets, I'll let you start off with what you're seeing here at running back and the quarterback here for the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for Bam Knight, Zonovan Knight. You'll see here at NC State. I mean, he was kind of stuck in a timeshare, and I played him time and time again last year in college, and like he just just stuck in a timeshare. But when you think about that, Breece Hall probably will get a little bit of the work, I don't know how much Carter and Coleman are going to get as well. So, I mean, you really might see a P. Ryan Knight backfield for the most of this game. So I definitely like both of those. Michael Carter, we've seen him catch ball out of the backfield, but he was kind of injury prone last year as well. So I think you see 6 names out there. Obviously, Ty Johnson probably not going to play. Breece Hall might play a couple series. So this might be spread out, but I mean, I would be very happy with a Bam Knight late night, 70-yard touchdown hammer in the fourth quarter. So I think there are some spots, and these guys won't be as popular because we'll get to it. So there's some other more consolidated running back teams, but I think P. Ryan and Knight are great GPPs.
I didn't know I was doing the show with Ben Pritchett today. Apparently Ben hacked into you with Zonovan Knight. No, actually, I like Zonovan Knight too. Looking at Zonovan Knight and P. Ryan, like you said, like maybe we'll see some Hall and Carter, but realistically, how much Hall, Carter, and Coleman are we going to see here? Yeah. It's definitely realistic. The back end of this game is very focused on P. Ryan and Zonovan Knight. And there's a realistic outcome where they get a 3/4 worth of work if Carter, Hall, and Coleman are not used much at all. So I definitely agree with that. Looking at the receivers, none of the guys make sense to me. We see the starters are expected to play. Also, something I like to look at is when we're looking more down the depth receivers, if it's not as thin, I want to see if there's anyone that has some elite talent. But like looking at these guys like Tariq Black, Deshaun Abram, Rashard Davis, like Calvin Jackson Jr., like they're not the most talented group of guys per se compared to some other back end guys that we'll talk about. So I really don't love any of them. Looking at the tight end situation, again, not thin. I will say Kenny Yeboah was known in college to catch some balls and be pretty productive. So I would say Yeboah could be an option in GPP and as your tight end play. What's your thoughts on Yeboah?
Yeah, I think Yeboah, like you said, he was a good option in college. I think you could definitely have worse options at tight end, but the rest of it's pretty spread out. Jeremy Ruckert might be a guy you looked at, but he was a little bit banged up. So I like Yeboah. On the wide receivers, I agree with you there. One guy I'm kind of, talking about talent who was a first-round pick was Denzel Mims. This is that guy now struggling to make the team. So I definitely think he's going to want to try to make an impression here. I don't think he's going to be that owned. So if there was any jet receiver, like you gun to my head, I have to play, it'd probably be Mims.
Yeah, that's valid as well. All right, moving over to the Philadelphia Eagles. This is where we finally get a bit of thin positioned. Quarterbacks, we are not going to see much out of Jalen Hurts. However, there's 4 guys there. They might all play to some extent. None of them are super appealing to me at all. Moving on to the running back. So we do not expect Boston Scott or Kenneth Gainwell to play. I'm going to be surprised if Miles Sanders plays more than a series. He might play 0 snaps. So DeAndre Torrey was just signed yesterday. So that leaves Kennedy Brooks and Jason Huntley. To me, they're the 2 clear best running back plays on the slate. I will say, though, that there is a possibility that the back end of the game is literally just Torrey running dives up the middle because that's the only play he knows what to do. But the fact that Kennedy Brooks and Huntley aren't established on the roster and they're probably on the outside looking in, I really like them from that perspective. Kennedy Brooks, probably my favorite running back on the slate. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you because they basically have their 3 running backs that they're going to carry for the regular season with Scott, Gainwell, and Sanders. So like Brooks and Huntley are really trying to just get a roster spot somehow, maybe through special teams. So yeah, I think when Torrey's a guy who's just signed, Brooks is a good play. Same thing as Huntley. I definitely think from a running back, this is what you're looking for, right? You're looking for, and I agree. I don't think Miles Sanders plays more than a series, especially if it's like a touchdown series. It's like, all right, get out of here. Let's let Brooks and Huntley play. So I think they'll play a majority of this game. Now on the wide receiver front, same thing. You're getting a lot of these guys who are going to be limited. I can't see A.J. Brown or Jalen Reagor, and even it's funny to see Zach Pascal here is like around the starters, which I mean, you just never think of him as a guy coming over from Indy. But Britton Covey, the 48-year-old 8th-year college senior, is finally, I can't believe that he had an extra year that he could have played, but he's finally here. Crazy that he's a return guy. He's getting first and second team reps. I mean, I'll definitely play him here. One guy I really like here is Devin Allen at wide receiver. I don't think he's going to get so many snaps, but if you're not familiar with him, played football at Oregon, but more importantly, was an Olympic track 110-meter hurdles, got screwed in the World Championships here, got disqualified for being 0.0002 seconds fast. But I think Devin Allen's a good GPP play. He's either going to have 0 catches or probably 2 for 77. So Allen is a deep sleeper in GPPs tonight. I'm a little biased, but I'll definitely have some of him.
Yeah, I mean, if he does catch a ball, it is likely to be a 60-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
So definitely valid. Yeah, I mean, so I will say whenever I see starters are expected to play 1 to 2 series, whenever I see that, I'm like, all right, that could be 0 snaps. Yeah. Or I'm like, if they have like a 6-play touchdown drive, they're done. So like when I look at that, I see A.J. Brown, I see Devontae Smith, Greg Ward, and John Hightower out. So like that removes you down to 8 receivers. So like we're at 8. Then I see A.J. Brown, Zach Pascal, Jalen Reagor. I don't really expect much out of them. That knocks us down to 5. So as soon as you get past that, you're looking at Quez Watkins, Grandpa Covey, Deion Kane, Lance Lenore, who I believe Lance Lenore has actually been a little bit banged up as well. We don't have anything listed here, but I think he's been a little banged up, and then Devin Allen. When you look at that, there's not many options of guys that are going to play. Not to mention, I think Quez Watkins, like they know what they have with Quez Watkins. My favorite receiver here from GPP perspective is Deion Kane. It's a guy we know that has talent. And then I also like Covey, Devin Allen. Like all these guys make sense to me. There's just very limited options here on the Eagles that can realistically go. Looking at the tight end position, as you see, Calcaterra and Tyree Jackson are not expected to play. Dallas Goedert, we expect very little. I like Jack Stoll from the idea that Jack Stoll has caught some balls to some extent. And then Arcega Whiteside is at tight end now. So he's registered as a tight end. He is probably going to get some run here. And realistically, I don't expect him to be much of a blocking tight end. So what's your thoughts on the tight end? Because this is the first spot where maybe we have some real options here.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's taken 3 years or 4 years, however long Arcega Whiteside's been in the NFL, for them to finally realize the guy's a tight end. So he's finally in that. I think you're right. He's not going to block. He's a decent option. Jack Stoll, I agree with you, is one of the best. And it tells you when you're talking about Jack Stoll being a good option for a tight end. I think those are 2 of your guys. Arcega Whiteside is the guy people know, so maybe he's a little popular, but not at the tight end position, and especially from a receiving upside standpoint. I think he can definitely just haul in a couple touchdowns, possibly. Depending on the question is, I haven't seen too much. How much run is Arcega-Whiteside going to get? How familiar is he at tight end? So correct. That's another question mark there.
Yeah, I definitely have concerns over Arcega-Whiteside's playing time, especially when I look at the other positions. I really like the running backs. The running backs are really strong. In my opinion, that's the thinnest group we have on the entire slate is the Philly running backs, and the receivers are also thin. So all of a sudden, are you going to really play like, let's say, a running back or two, a receiver, and then also a tight end? You might have to, because realistically, if you guaranteed me like 5 points on a tight end, I'd probably lock that and call it a day.
Yeah,
it's going to be not pretty out there today. All right, next game, we got Arizona and Cincinnati. We'll start off here with the Cardinals. I will let you talk up Jarrett Guarantano because I will probably struggle to do so.
Jarrett Guarantano is a guy that, he's going to play some tonight, but it's like, okay, normally it's volume, but when you've actually seen Jarrett Guarantano throw a football in an actual football game, then you do not want to play him at all. But, your guy, Trace McSorley, is in here as well. Both are not very good, obviously we've seen NFL quarterbacks, but they're going to be out there. So McSorley's going to get a bunch of run. I might just have to, in the opto, just put like 10% or 5% Guarantano. Like, there's no way if I hand build a lineup, I'm going to put him in there. But he might get, if he gets 2 quarters and throws a couple touchdowns, and he might be, definitely worth it. But it's just very hard to click that name for me, knowing who he is.
Yeah, let's just make this clear. Of all the quarterbacks in the league, there's a pretty realistic chance that Guarantano is bottom one of that group. But as Micah said, he will likely be out there.
He's a body.
And he could play more than most quarterbacks on the slate. I do like McSorley. He's probably one of my favorite quarterbacks on the night, not just due to his Penn State roots, but he is mobile. This is a guy that can run and be productive on the ground. And when you're looking at some of the other quarterbacks, you're not getting that. And his playing time tonight should be pretty significant as well. Looking at the running backs, I actually like some of the back-end guys like Ronnie Rivers and TJ Pledger from a talent perspective. But we have 7 guys here. 6 could play. It's just not really the spot I want to go into when we have other teams that have 2 to 3 backs. Looking at the receivers, here's a question for you. Is it Andy and Isabella season?
Why does it seem like Isabella's been in the league for like 5? For some reason, like I didn't even think that the Cardinals kept him on the team, but it's always about to be Andy Isabella's season, right? Every time you'd have an injury or anything on the Cardinals, it's like, well, Isabella will step right in. So now is he going to get his time to shine? But I mean, there aren't that many. I mean, from a talent perspective, you've got Andre Basilea, one of the 4 tenors, I guess. That's who they're starting at receiver now. So it is slim. Greg Dortch is still there. Victor Bolden, Jontre Kirkland, my LSU guy, is in there as well. But I mean, if not now, when for Isabella, right? So he's going to start. All these guys are probably going to play a lot. Like you said, you see that top 5 guys not going to play. There's going to be volume there. So I think all these guys are kind of good option in this range for Arizona, because you're not going to want to play many running backs because you got a lot of options there.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm pretty sure the 3 starting receivers tonight for Arizona clock in at like an average 5'5", 110 pounds.
Yeah.
Isabella, Dortch, and Basilea are like not big guys. But yeah, like looking at this receiving core, so we obviously don't expect any of Hopkins, Brown, Rondale, and AJ Green. Anton Wesley's injured. We don't expect him at all. Aitman just signed a week ago. So if you remove that, it leaves you at Isabella, Dortch, Basilea, Bolden, Kirkland, Payton. That's it. This is also a team that we do know we can get some 4 wide sets out of them. We can get some passing out of them. Looking up at the passing options, yes, it's not the best with McSorley and Guarantano. That is something to note, is that the people throwing them the ball will likely not be the best. But Trace has been around the league for quite a while now, so he's at least a serviceable guy in the preseason. But yeah, I like Isabella. I like Dortch. I like Basilea. These are all guys that are realistically fighting for a roster spot. So we should see a significant amount of them. And then Victor Bolden actually had a really good catch the other day in the preseason. So he's someone to keep an eye out on as well. Looking at the tight ends, again, not seeing much. Steven Anderson's a guy that's been around the league for a while. He can catch the ball. So I am somewhat interested in him. And then looking at the defenses. So if we look at the quarterback situation in this game, again, not the best on the Cardinals side. So I do like the Bengals defense quite a bit. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think from a game theory perspective, you've got, even though McSorley and Guarantano are going to play a lot, the also flip side of that is McSorley struggles, and so maybe only plays like the first half, and then you get a whole second half of Guarantano. So I think from that upside, I don't think anyone on the slate has an upside that Cincinnati does, even though you're targeting a lot of Bengals guys. Arizona guys individually. I do think that you can bring it on one side with the Bengals, just because I think you do have, a 2 to 3 interception upside. With Guarantano, you might have a 2 interception floor. You just never know how that's going to go. So I definitely like the Bengals defense tonight.
For sure. All right, looking over at the other side of thing with Cincy, Brandon Allen and Jake Browning are expected to play most, if not the whole game. The fact that Drew Plitt is there does take away even a little bit of luster from those guys, even though they're not good. Talking about that, I do like the Cardinals defense because these are not great quarterbacks either. Looking at running backs, so we have Mixon not expected to play. That leaves Evans, P. Ryan, Travion Williams, Jacques Patrick, Shamari Jones. There's definitely some carries to be had in this backfield. I just don't know where they're going to come from. For me, I like Chris Evans due to his speed that he has. I also think Travion and even Shamari Jones makes some sense. They just signed Jacques Patrick, I believe, so I don't like him as much as the others. Plus, he doesn't really have much speed to really break away from anything. So if you're going to get limited touches, I at least want some semblance of the home run threat if I can get it. So that's not really much there. What's your thoughts with the backs? Do you see anyone that stands out to you? Like, I do think someone here makes sense. The issue is we have a couple teams with 2 backs effectively.
Yeah, I agree with you. But this is not what you want to see with the depth chart when you just have the starters not going to play and then just a free-for-all behind it. So Shamari Jones from Coastal Carolina as a rookie. Travion Williams is a guy I think he should be a successful NFL back. He's got all the tools. So he would be my pick there. But once again, it's whose guess on how many series. They could all get a series or 2, and then that just kind of screws you from an upside angle.
Yeah, definitely. Looking a bit down the line at receiver and tight end. The only thing that stands out to me, I guess, is one, Scotty Washington's a tight end now. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah, Scotty Washington apparently is a tight end. I told Fear My Turtle this the other day, and he was blown away that Scotty Washington's a tight end in the league right now. The only person that really stands out to me, I guess, a little bit is Thaddeus Moss. For those unaware, that is Randy Moss's son, the former tight end from LSU. He has some pass catching ability, and when tight end is as weak as it is, I at least look there. But overall, for me, I don't like either the receiving or tight end options for Cincy much. Do you see anything differently?
Yeah, Thaddeus Moss played on that Joe Burrow offense in 2019, so he's definitely worth a look. Same thing as receiver. Interesting that Puka Williams is now a receiver playing there. So he is a guy just from a big play potential. Javon Hiley from Coastal, 2 Coastal Carolina guys on this team. So. But once again, not what you want to see when you just got a ton of options and you don't know how that's going to get spread out.
For sure. All right, going into the last game of the slate. For those that are interested in asking any questions, make sure you guys post it on the YouTube video or in the Discord. We'll be happy to answer. And make sure you guys are in the Discord as the night goes. A lot of the preseason is dependent on news as the day goes along. So I'll be in the Discord all night. Michael will be popping in and out. If you guys have questions, we'll be happy to answer them. And make sure you guys are there. So here is a link to the Discord if you guys are not already in there. Lots of great channels. The news and notes, I'll be posting stuff as it comes out throughout the day. All right, last game of the night, we got the Green Bay Packers at San Francisco. We're not expecting Aaron Rodgers to play. Danny Etling's basically a back-end guy. So that leaves Jordan Love expected to get 2+ quarters here. Could be 3 or more. For Love. So definitely the top 2 quarterbacks for me on the DraftKings slate are Love and Trace. If you include the other game for FanDuel, I would also put Ritter in that group as well. Looking at the running back. So the big question at running back for me is whether or not Patrick Taylor is going to be ready to go. If Patrick Taylor is active in this game, that makes 3 running backs that have been there, and then Dexter Williams, who has been on the team before. So he is someone that is familiar with the offense and probably can come in on short notice and give them some carries. For me personally, I like the Philadelphia situation a bit better because no matter what, I think that they are severely limited. I see the potential for this to be 4, but I still like it a lot because it realistically could be like a Goodson Baylor show with a little bit of Dexter Williams. What's your thoughts on this backfield, and what do you think comparatively to Philadelphia here?
Well, first of all, we'll just dismiss your Danny Etling comment. He's a good. That was the thing at LSU. Danny Etling is a good quarterback. That's it. Not a great, just a good quarterback. But he has not been a good NFL quarterback. Although preseason it's been decent. That's where he is. Yeah. But I'm with you. I think it has an interesting situation because, like you said, this is not as good of a situation as Philly. However, you got some unknowns. Patrick Taylor coming back from a groin injury. Do they want to test that as much? Does Goodson and Baylor, so I think they're going to be lower owned, so a little bit better option. Like you mentioned, Dexter Williams has been in that situation before. So, definitely something I'm going to have some exposure to. But when Jordan Love is such a better play also, I think that throws a little bit of a wrinkle into it as well. At receiver, you can see a lot of guys not expected to play. So you've got from a wide receiver, you talk about the Philly running back situation. I think the best wide receiver situation are these Packers guys because you've got 5 guys from Winfrey, Dobbs, Rodgers, Torrey, and Davis, all like that's it. That's all who's going to be out there. And so I'll let you take on your take on this situation. But I think there's all 5 of these guys are in play. I think a couple of them aren't getting talked up as much. That could be just as good at plays as Winfrey and Dobbs getting talked up from a popular standpoint.
Yeah, so as we look here at the receiving situation, we're not expecting anything or very little from Lazard, Watson, Cobbs, and Sammy Watkins. Malik Taylor has been banged up. We don't think he's going to play, but that could change. When you remove all that, there's 5. You're maxed out at 5. The people that have been getting the discussions in camp thus far have been Romeo Doubs and Juwann Winfrey, and I think they're great plays. I think that Doubs is probably one of my favorite receivers on the slate. But Amari Rodgers, Samori Toure, and Danny Davis are not really getting discussed at all, and they have to play a significant amount. If we only have 5 receivers, and let's say there's 350 percentage points of snaps to go around at receiver, all of them have to average 70% of the snaps. Now, obviously, some are going to play more and some are going to play less than that, but even in the situation where you play less and you're at like 50%, you're a really good play. So I think all 5 of these guys are totally in play and options here tonight for Green Bay. Looking at tight end, again, continuation with it not being very pretty. I do like Degara a bit because he is someone that's caught some balls at Cincinnati. So he's at least a guy that I've seen catch balls in his career, even though it was collegiate. So that's at least appealing to me. So looking at the other side of things with San Francisco on the defensive side, I do like their defense because we have a full game against Jordan Love and Danny Etling. Not the best quarterback play there to be expected, despite the snap counts being there. That's another note for you guys that are newer to preseason. Playing defenses against your quarterback is more than fun. A lot of the time you're playing quarterbacks because they're going to be out there for 3+ quarters. They might not be the most efficient in those times and will have turnovers and have mistakes. So you can totally play a quarterback against your defense and not have to worry about it at all. All right, quickly going over to the San Francisco 49ers here. Again, Lance is expected to play here. That takes a little bit of luster off for the Packers defense, but once you get past him, you see Nate Sudfeld and Brock Purdy, who just ran into sacks in college. So what's your thoughts there with the quarterback play?
Yeah, same thing. Not too much to like on the quarterback side, and they might get some. I think Sudfeld and Purdy are going to get a lot of the time, but so they might be a little bit more of a contrarian option when you've got Jordan Love on the other side, who I think is probably going to be the most popular guy on the DraftKings slate. But definitely, they're not appealing options at any rate. And then going to the running backs, the same thing is where you've got kind of wide open on who's going to get there. Tyrion Davis-Price is intriguing as a rookie from LSU. He's been getting raves in camp. But if once again he kind of falls into that Demetric Felton mold to where if they think he's going to have a role on the actual regular season team, how much work he gets here. So also kind of a wide open depth chart at running back.
Yeah, the running backs, I definitely see a little bit of talent here at the bottom. Trey Sermon's been talked up quite a bit. I do expect him to be a little bit owned during the slate tonight. But yeah, there's not much I'm liking at running back with how deep it is. Again, receivers, there's one guy I will talk about here that I really like talent-wise, Danny Gray. Danny Gray was a guy I was on literally day 0 in college, and this is a guy that is absolutely lightning fast. I think he's a really good talent. He definitely has a chance to catch like 50, 60-yard touchdown here. Moving on to the tight ends, we have probably my favorite tight end play of the slate, and that is the GOAT known as Tanner Hudson. For those unfamiliar with preseason DFS, he is basically the best player of all time. Tanner Hudson goes out there at a position that is terrible and just produces. I am a little bit worried that there's quite a few tight ends on the team, but looking through these other options, I just don't see great tight end plays. I would rather take a GOAT that I know can catch balls on the back end. What's your thoughts on Tanner Hudson, the GOAT?
Yeah, I love that our qualification for tight ends that are eligible on the slate that they can catch. Because that's really all you want our guys. Like, hey, can he catch the football? Okay, he's in my pool. But yeah, Tanner Hudson, like you said, has had that preseason. We've seen what he can do there. So he's probably one of the best tight end options on the board. One wide receiver I will point out that I like is Tate Martin. Not just because he's from my hometown of Houma, Louisiana, but all he did last year at Oklahoma State was catch touchdowns. And so if he's going to be out there, I think he's definitely a good GPP option that I don't think is going to be popular at all. So I like Tate Martin and Keyshawn Johnson as well, a guy back from Fresno State a couple of years ago in Arizona. I think there are some names here on this, wide receiver group that you can definitely plug in.
For sure. So yeah, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. We will be back tomorrow. I will have Chris Tremino with me, and we'll go over tomorrow's 4 or 5 game slate. I think it's 5 games. But yeah, so for tonight, good luck to everyone. We hope that you guys have the best luck. Anything you want to add, Micah, before we call today here?
Nah, it's good. Ready to get like the first kind of big slate of the season. That just means football season's here, and that's always a good thing.
There you go. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Make sure you guys are in the Discord. I'll be in there throughout the night posting news and notes until the games start, and then I will disappear for a little bit since I don't leave the computer all day. For Micah, I am Sean. We will see you guys later. Have a good one, everyone.